It started with a dapper-looking man making an offer. A regretful thought echoed in my mind. I should have known better than to listen to that bastard. Back then, Jimmy had commanded with such arrogance. Don't overthink it. Just sign right here. Rand's hand, holding the pen, hesitated for a moment. He wavered and asked again, but is this really safe? Hearing that, the man slammed the table in annoyance and snapped. Come on. Seriously, didn't I just say something? I told you not to think about it. Jimmy put on a friendly act. Do you really think I'd scam my own high school friend? I've already explained everything, haven't I? Principal protection and compound interest, my friend. He didn't stop trying to lure Rand in. Just put your money here, and it'll grow on its own. I wouldn't tell just anyone about this golden opportunity. I only called you because I was thinking of you. Jimmy used words that hit home, reminding him of having to take business calls during his own father's funeral and having to bow and scrape before his boss. It breaks my heart, really. Rand gritted his teeth, silently fuming the moment he mentioned his father, but he couldn't do a thing about it. Placing his pen on the paper, he silently prayed, hoping that the kindness before him was real. At that moment, that was all he could do. Remembering Jimmy's wicked face, Rand cursed himself for being such a fool. Time slipped by. 2 years later, light streamed through the cracks in the door, revealing a messy room. Rand sat in the bathroom, retching uncontrollably, his expression completely blank. He cursed irritably. Damn it, I just bought a little snack, and I've already puked it all up. He understood one thing clearly. As an average 28-year-old man in Korea, his current life was far more pathetic than that. Rand looked at the pile of books nearby, feeling utterly helpless. The bastard who caused this mess had vanished for a year without a trace, while he was living hand-to-mouth like trash, drowning in debt. He lingered by the novel on the table, telling himself, 5 more hours until my part-time shift. Maybe I'll just read a bit and then go to sleep. That's right. The only joy in this rotten life of Rance was dark hero novels. He reached for the book, muttering, just 30 minutes. Sitting on the bed, he started. Rand began to calculate. By now, he must have reread it over 100 times, but it was always captivating. He knew the plot by heart already. He started flipping through the pages, thinking that this was the only escape that helped him forget his miserable life. Suddenly, Rand's eyes were drawn elsewhere. Outside the window, 2 crow feathers were falling. Rand stared blankly, wondering, what is this? Feathers. His eyes narrowed in suspicion. They were black crow feathers. Suddenly, blood gushed from Rand's nose and mouth, leaving him in a state of confusion. Watching the blood splatter, Rand asked himself in bewilderment, what the hell is this? A stabbing pain surged through him, and he could only endure it. My heart. Rand vomited another mouthful of blood. He thought in pain, I can't breathe. Rand's face turned pale in an instant. He cursed helplessly. Damn my life. His entire being was filled with a sense of lingering regret. Am I really going to die like this? So pointlessly, Rand leaned his back against the headboard and thought. Just as he was about to give up and think that maybe this was for the best, a surge of anger flared up within him. Unexpectedly, the last thing that came to his mind at that moment was the face of that bastard. He remembered Jimmy's arrogant demeanor. More black crow feathers began to appear around Rand, but he could only slump there in helplessness. Damn it, I couldn't do anything. A pitch-black space enveloped him, and fragmented voices echoed. Rand's eyes snapped open in a state of aimless confusion. He bolted upright, wondering, what just happened? Was it a dream? Rand's eyes widened in surprise. He looked around, becoming even more confused. Where am I? He kept muttering. What kind of hellhole is this? Suddenly, a sound echoed, catching Rand's attention. Outside was a black crow, tilting its head at him. Looking at the tree outside, which had dozens of black crows, he blankly blurted out, A black crow suddenly flew through the door, startling him. Whoa! Rand shouted in a panic. Help me! He was deeply worried, wondering what kind of twisted nightmare this was. Was it because he'd been suffering from insomnia lately? The black crow moved closer and called out louder. Rand could only squeeze his eyes shut and pray. Please let me wake up from this dream. Please. However, contrary to his anxiety, the black crow only gently nudged its head against Rand's hand. He sat up, confused, and played with it, wondering, what's wrong with this crow? Why is it being so friendly all of a sudden? A while later, the black crow left. It left with the flock of crows outside. Witnessing that scene, Rand's eyes widened in bewilderment. Wait, this is... He looked at the scenery outside and realized. Could this place be? Rand went to look at his reflection in the window, thinking that while he was initially confused, he quickly realized this wasn't the reality he knew. He speculated. This place was perhaps... He realized the problem. A voice called out from outside. Your Highness Rand Aberrin, it's Anna. May I come in? Rand panicked and shouted. Wait. No, wait a second. Don't open the door. I'm just not feeling well. Hearing the loud noise inside, Anna was startled and stopped in her tracks. Rand had fallen face first to the floor, his whole body trembling in pain. Oh, my head. She took the hint and left. Sigh. I'll come back later. Meanwhile, he quickly grasped the situation. Rand Aberrin's suspicion was correct. He touched his head in pain, telling himself, this place is the novel I've read countless times. This is the world of the Dark Hero, and the person whose body I've just possessed is the seventh prince of this empire, Rand Aberrin. Thinking of this, Rand felt even more helpless. This guy was fated to die a miserable death right at the beginning of the story. Damn it all. He sat dejectedly by the bed, thinking, how the hell did this happen? I never expected to wake up in the world of a novel, but why did it have to be this guy? While Rand was lost in thought, someone approached and called out, Your Highness, it is I, Sai. Rand's expression immediately darkened, and he shot a cold gaze, wondering. Sane? The seventh prince's attendant. He pushed the door open and stepped in, starting the conversation. I heard you skipped dinner again, so I came here personally because I was worried. Sane pushed up his glasses and asked, I have prepared a humble meal. Are you feeling any better? Rand paused for a moment, telling himself, Stay calm. First, I have to pretend to be aberrant. Then he slowly stood up and said, Yeah, I'm feeling much better. Sane looked a bit confused but replied, That's a relief. He ordered the maid. Anna, quickly serve the meal to His Highness. She obeyed and replied, Yes, I understand. Rand spoke politely. Ah, thanks. Watching Anna arrange the food, he couldn't help but judge. Why is she trembling like a leaf? Is this real food? It looks no different than dog food. Rand was a bit impatient, reaching out and saying, Just give it to me. I can pour the tea myself. However, that startled Anna, causing her to spill the entire teapot. She immediately froze on the spot, not knowing what to do. Anna panicked and knelt in the puddle, saying, I beg for your mercy. Rand wondered in confusion. What's wrong with her? Why is she overreacting like she just committed a great crime? Anna hurriedly wiped up the puddle with a cloth and spoke. I'm sorry. I am terribly sorry. A moment later, he understood the problem. Right? It's because Rand Aberrin was a piece of trash. Rand remembered that in the novel, he didn't just smash things and use violence whenever he was annoyed. If he was in a bad mood, he would even kill his servants. Anna kept picking up the pace of her cleaning, muttering, I deserve to die, but please spare my life. In reality, Rand was the scummiest villain in the early stages of the Dark Hero. Just then, Sane spoke from behind. I'm sorry to bother you while you're dining, but I didn't expect the noble prince to be ill. Anyway, seeing that you're fine, I'm relieved. He pulled out a scroll and suggested, I apologize for bothering you while you eat, but Sane opened it and placed it on the table, speaking like a command. Please sign this budget proposal first. These are all extremely important matters. Rand frowned immediately when he shoved the pen into his hand, muttering to himself, Important, my ass, a bunch of liars. What could a prince who is both talentless and ignorant possibly have that is important? Looking at the ledger placed in front of him, he judged bluntly. Clearly, this was just a bunch of forged documents. The guy's real purpose was to embezzle the seventh prince's budget. Rand looked at Sane, who was acting smug, remembering that the reason a low-life attendant like Sane could act this way was because he was related to the Empress. That all-powerful Empress had a huge influence on this entire world. He gently placed his pen on the paper and pondered, but the original owner of this body was a fool who didn't know a thing about it. Right now, I shouldn't deviate from the original plot, so I still have to sign this. Seeing Rand's hesitation, Sane hurriedly mocked. Did your Highness forget how to sign your name? Even for a prince, that's a bit embarrassing. He quickly realized that the guy's attitude was nothing but contempt. Rand felt a bit annoyed inside. Even with the title of royalty, he was being treated with open contempt by an attendant. Even if he was transmigrated into a novel, Why did it have to be a troublesome person like the seventh prince? Sane kept pushing, mocking him. It really is pathetic. But isn't that why you need me? So, Your Highness, don't think about it anymore and just sign here. Hearing this, Rand's entire body seemed to freeze. He remembered that day when Jimmy had also used that arrogant tone, saying, "Don't overthink it, just sign here." Then Rand let out a breath and made up his mind. "No, I won't live a life of such humiliation anymore." He spoke coldly, causing the man's expression to sink. Sane thought about it and realized something felt a bit off. "Isn't this clearly a waste of the budget?" Sane smirked and replied, "How surprising. I didn't expect you to have such thoughts. It seems I underestimated you, Your Highness." He put on a dark expression and threatened, "But your food is getting cold. If you sign first, I'll reconsider that later." He urged him loudly, "So, Your Highness, don't think about anything else and just sign." Right then, a teapot was thrown, and Anna jumped in fear. The large teapot shattered, taking Sane's glasses with it. He stood there blankly, questioning, "Your Highness, what is the meaning of this?" Rand replied very calmly, "Sorry. My hand slipped." He thought to himself, "Since I've plowed through this novel over 100 times, I wouldn't know if I didn't want to." It was true that Sane was related to the Empress, but it was such a distant connection that the Empress didn't even know he existed. Sane stopped and glared, probing, "Your Highness, what the hell are you doing?" So Rand swung his hand and flipped the table. This action of his left the guy stunned. Rand's gaze grew dark. He thought, "I don't know how I got here, but I don't intend to die pointlessly like in the original story." He spoke calmly and coldly. "You were the one distracting me, which made my hand slip. Don't you intend to take responsibility for this?" Rand thought wearily. "In my previous life, I was born with nothing, looked down upon everywhere, and lived a life of constant loss. Now I don't give a damn about living like that." Relying on all the knowledge he had from the novel and the authority of the Seventh Prince, he once again urged him, "Sane, what are you still standing there for?" Rand pointed at the floor and said, "The rug is all dirty." His whole body radiated a cold aura, and he ordered, "Clean it up now." In Rand's heart, there was only one thought: I must survive at all costs. Sane judged silently. Royalty are gods. Everything in this world was born to serve them. He wondered with annoyance. They're special abilities that only royal members possess, along with their beautiful golden hair. Aren't they the incarnation of gods and the symbol of nobility? Their dominance is a given fact. Sane's face showed clear hatred, thinking, of course, except for that trashy seventh prince. He glared at Rand in anger. He was both stupid and crude, and he even had disgusting black hair. Can that kind of person even be called royalty? Sane gritted his teeth in anger. A pathetic guy who only knows how to scrape by and watch the faces of other princes. How much money did I spend on bribes? Was it just to serve someone like him? Even so, Sane still had to bow his head and clean up. He cursed himself. Damn it, this is not the time for me to be mopping the floor. A while later, he reported, "Your Highness, I have cleaned it up." Just as he was about to leave, he saw another cup being thrown. "Then I will excuse myself." Sane was startled and shouted, "Your Highness, what do you mean by this?" Rand responded bluntly, "You took so much time just for this one cup. Take this opportunity to practice more." He ordered coldly, "Clean it up. Hurry." Seeing this, Sane could only bow and mutter, "You seem strange today. I don't know how I should report this to the Empress." Hearing that, Rand sighed with frustration. He couldn't even get to see the Empress, yet he's threatening me? It seems this still wasn't enough to wake him up. It's best to make things clear so he doesn't go overboard later. So he turned to Anna and said, "You, cover your ears." She asked in confusion, "Yes, my ears?" Rand threatened dangerously. "This isn't something for someone like you to hear. If you dare to eavesdrop on even one word, I'll have you working without any fingers left." Anna screamed in extreme fear. Yes, yes." Then she tightly covered her ears and bowed her head low. Anna could only hear faint, unclear words from Rand. She didn't know what he said, but Sane's expression was turning increasingly pale. Drops of sweat kept falling on his face. Returning to reality, Anna whispered the story, her face instantly drained of color. He looked like he had just seen a dead body. She whispered to the other maids with confusion, "Have you noticed that the seventh prince has been acting weird since that day?" The others nodded in agreement. Anna makes a point, doesn't she?" Anna hurriedly blurted out, "Everyone sees it too, right? I think." Before she could finish, the other maids cried rivers of resentment. You've become much scarier. Will we even be alive next year? Everyone whispered to each other. Anyway, it's less stressful not running into him lately, right? Yeah, you don't even go outside and just hide in the palace all the time. Then suddenly they turned to ask, by the way, Anna, don't you work somewhere else? You're on cleaning duty today. Only then did Anna remember and exclaim, ah, crap. At the same time, in the office, looking at the sunlight streaming in, Rand couldn't help but exclaim, the weather is beautiful today. He stood by the window with a cup of tea and calculated. If I just act the part of the seventh prince in the story, no one will suspect anything. The servants seem scared and are avoiding me now. He remembered the day Sane walked away dejectedly. Since then, Sane hasn't dared to act up. In fact, he doesn't even dare to come near me. That's great. I don't want to throw another teapot at anyone's head either. Rand leisurely enjoyed the hot tea in his hand and thought, the reason I can be so relaxed is because there's still plenty of time. It's 1 year until the story begins and 3 years until my death date. The novel that I've plowed through over 100 times. I still remember, as if it were yesterday the day, I stumbled upon this old, tattered book in the corner of the local library. Thinking back, I realized how obsessed I was with this story. He calculated calmly. It's still a long way before the male lead appears and the story begins. Now, I'll just leisurely enjoy this free time like a royal. Then Rand looked outside and whispered, anyway, the weather really is beautiful. I wish I had wings to look down and admire this scenery from above. Suddenly, at that exact moment, a jolt of electricity seemed to run through his body. The teacup in Rand's hand also fell to the floor and shattered. Rand slumped over in discomfort, asking himself, what is this? Why is my body suddenly burning up? He gritted his teeth, trying to endure it. This feeling was a bit different from the last time. His whole body felt like it was on fire. Right at this moment, Anna's voice sounded from outside. Is your highness in there? It's Anna. May I enter the library to clean? Rand's eyes immediately turned towards her in worry. Help. Please save me. Outside, Anna breathed a sigh of relief and pushed the door open. Phew, thank goodness. It seems he's not in this room. When she entered, she couldn't help but be confused to see the shattered teacup on the floor and screamed, what is this? Wait, what just happened here? Anna murmured regretfully while cleaning up. Oh my god, what a waste. If we sold this set, my family would have enough to eat for a whole month. Suddenly, a sound echoed, catching her attention. When she saw a black crow staring at her, Anna panicked and screamed, is this a crow? She hurriedly stood up and backed away. Then Anna panicked and approached a scoop, ran into her arms, asking, little crow, how did you get all the way in here? There's a very scary person here, you know? In his heart, he was still in total chaos, unable to believe it. Did I just turn from a seventh prince into a crow? But why would something like that happen? She opened the window and whispered, I'd love to keep you, but if the prince catches us like this, we're both done for. Rand thought helplessly, wait, I am that prince. Right after that, Anna reached out to let him fly away. You know how to fly, right? Fly far away now. Rand was terrified. No, don't let go. This is an order. Please, if she lets go. She didn't hear those words and actually let him fall. Rand screamed in panic in his mind. No, don't look at the green trees down below. He felt completely helpless. I'm dead. I'm definitely dead. If I fall, I'm done for. He started struggling, wondering how to survive. Using my wings is the right way to go, right? His eyes were filled with determination, whispering to himself, fly, I don't want to die in a dump like this. Just like that, Rand spread his wings. He wondered blankly, what is this? Rand flapped his wings in the air, lost in confusion. I can fly. I'm actually flying. Wait, if I'm like this, can I turn back into a human? Time slipped away, and night gradually fell. Rand stood by the window, panting, thinking, thank goodness I can still turn back into a normal human. I've tested it a few more times just to be sure. His face turned pale with bewilderment. The ability to turn into a crow at will? He didn't expect that just thinking about it would trigger the transformation. Rand felt a bit uneasy. How did he become a crow? This must be the curse from the crow that latched onto him on the first day. An ability like this had never appeared in the story. He calculated cautiously. Even though he didn't know why he had this power, one thing was clear. He absolutely could not let anyone find out. Ran thought in a muddle. Transforming into a crow was a power never mentioned in the novel. It could disrupt the progression of the plot. This ability was surely linked to Manus. While Ran was still lost in thought, a voice outside urged, "Your Highness, the sacrificial ceremony is about to begin. You need to get ready to leave." He turned around and muttered, "The day has finally come." Ran remembered the story's content. Once a month, the Emperor, the Empress's children, and the princes gather for this sacred sacrificial ritual, known as the Mana Sacrifice. In reality, this was a test for the succession. Of course, the seventh prince didn't even stand a chance of being on the candidate list. He felt a bit unhappy, thinking, seeing it with my own eyes, the feeling is completely different from just reading about it in a book. The seventh prince had to sit way at the end of the table. Ram looked around, assessing. It must be thanks to their golden hair that they all seemed to radiate a blinding aura. Compared to them, the seventh prince was nothing more than a lone black crow. Just as he sat down, someone began to mock him. How dare a half-breed hold his head up high without feeling ashamed? Ran looked up, wondering who the person in front of him was. He quickly realized it was the eighth prince, Selos Abrin, his 17-year-old half-brother. Even though it was clear he didn't see Ran as a brother at all, Selos rested his chin on his hand and questioned, "Does this low-life trash not even understand human language anymore?" Ran relaxed his body and let out a sigh. We're both just minor villains appearing for a bit of flair. Seeing that he didn't reply, the boy impatiently slammed the table and shouted, "Hey, are you deaf, you bastard?" Just then, Mentos walked by and patted Selos on the shoulder, reminding him, "As siblings, you should get along. Don't cause trouble right in front of His Majesty, understand?" He hurriedly bowed his head to reply, "I apologize, Great Princess." Ran seized the opportunity to assess the situation. So, that's the Great Princess. If so, then from left to right would be the first prince, third prince, and second prince. The first prince, second prince, third prince, and Great Princess. They sat exactly according to their rank. Ran silently confirmed that the brighter the hair, the more terrifying the power they possessed. In other words, they were the only true royals. Then he frowned, thinking, compared to them, the original owner of this body had pitch black hair. The only royal born without any Manus. No wonder his personality became so twisted. And the one who topped the charts for Manus in the legends of this world was, of course. At that moment, someone entered, possessing golden hair. Everyone hurriedly stood up, solemnly bowing and shouting, "His Majesty the Emperor has arrived." One hand held glory, the other held faith, and destruction lay within his clasped hands. Ran looked toward him, thinking, the pinnacle of this empire, the Emperor. As soon as he entered, he stroked his beard and ordered, "Don't waste any more time. Start immediately." Watching the Emperor's every move, Ran whispered to himself, "That blue stone is the artifact left behind by the first Emperor, Prasa, when Manus energy is channeled into it. The stone measures the user's amount of Manus. Beams of energy continuously radiated outward. The way of displaying the Manus amount was very visual. You just had to look at how far the light emitted from the stone spread. The Emperor's energy beam shot straight to the edge of the blue stone. Seeing this scene, those around couldn't help but admire. Oh, the light spread all the way to the edge of the table. Truly worthy of His Majesty. Ran alone felt a bit confused. But did the light usually spread all the way to the edge of the table like this? After finishing, the Emperor raised his hand and ordered, "Whoever wishes to challenge, step forward." Hearing that, Ran frowned and turned. Yeja smiled and raised his hand to volunteer. "Your Majesty, I request to try." He observed everything even more carefully. There were no mandatory rules. But according to tradition, only the first prince participated in this ceremony. Because once Manus rankings are measured, they are rarely reversed. Ran speculated that the amount of Manus was equivalent to the scale of one's power. The first prince would periodically perform before the entire royal family to prove who stood at the top of the current power chain, and to confirm who was the true next emperor. Yeja stepped forward with a confident expression, but immediately after, his face darkened, and he panicked, shouting, "Older brother!" Fresh blood poured from Yeja's nose. Panicked noises rang out continuously. "Hey, is anyone there?" They yelled in distress, Hurry, call a doctor quickly. Rand's eyes were also filled with surprise. In the midst of the chaos, he was the only one who truly understood what was happening. He looked at Sane and thought, the first prince is about to kick the bucket. He's going to be coughing up blood from his mouth and nose all over himself. Rand told himself, the main plot has officially started. Manus is a special kind of power in this world. Usually, it only appears in those of royal blood. But everyone's ability is different. For example, the first prince uses water manus, while the second prince uses fire manus. The measurement result for the first prince today was already predetermined. The light he emitted probably only reached a little past half the table. It's still 6 months until that event, though. While Rand was thinking that, everyone was already panicking. Older brother, is anyone there? Hurry, call a doctor fast. Standing in the middle of a noisy crowd, Rand was a bit bewildered. According to the original work, it should have been another half year before the first prince coughed up blood. The arrival of the male lead was even after that. He started to piece everything together. But wait, why could the seventh prince turn into a crow in the first place? The predecessor of this body was someone who couldn't use manus at all. Rand's eyes widened in confusion. An ability that never existed in the story suddenly appeared right after he possessed the body. Was this really just a coincidence? After returning to his room, Rasia angrily cursed. Damn it, this is hell. He turned and punched the glass in front of him, muttering, everything was clearly fine this morning, and yesterday was no different from any other day. Rasia's hand began to channel manus. He shouted in discomfort, but his whole body was trembling uncontrollably. He grabbed his face and growled in anger. His mind had started to become chaotic. Every time I try to channel manus, my whole body feels like it's burning. Don't tell me that from now on, I will never be able to use manus again. He stood up trembling, telling himself, that's impossible. I am the first prince of the Aberrant Empire, the next emperor of this empire. Rasia grabbed the pipe on the table, thinking, I am completely different from those bugs out there. That's for sure. After reassuring himself, he took a puff, muttering, there's probably nothing serious. As long as I rest for a bit, my manus will also. Before Rasia could think much more, a voice spoke from the shadows. If you still want to keep your life, you had better stay away from that medicine bottle first. He angrily threw the pipe forward and shouted, who's there? Watching the pipe shatter beside him, Rand silently evaluated. He really is a monster when it comes to using power. As soon as he saw that the visitor was Rand, Rasia smirked in mockery. Made me think someone sent an assassin. You're just a piece of trash who doesn't even know how to use manus, right? Who do you think you are to show your face all the way here? Rand heard this and didn't get angry, but replied bluntly, if I were an assassin, you would have been a goner long ago. You didn't even realize I was here until I spoke, did you? Someone like me could sneak into the bedroom of the future emperor, the second most heavily guarded place in the empire, without leaving a trace. Rasia turned to question, how did you get into my room? What kind of magic trick did you use? He answered nonchalantly, I climbed the wall from the outside. That's how. He shouted uncomfortably. You think I'll believe that? Rand didn't care, saying, well, it's fine if you don't believe me. That's not important right now. He bluntly asked, how is your body feeling? Of course, your royal physicians will say there's no illness. But you are the one who knows your own condition best. As if hit on a sore spot, Rasia laughed. Then he laughed louder and louder. Rasia spoke with a bit of sarcasm. Right now I understand. You're actually capable of using your brain. He angrily criticized. You secretly poisoned me, planning to use that as a bargaining chip with me, right? To save your own pathetic life after I ascend to the throne? Is that it? Rasia switched to a personal attack. If that's your plan, you're dead wrong, my stupid little brother. Rand didn't care about that and gently reminded him. In just 1 week, you'll be the one begging for death, when blood starts pouring from your eyes and ears. Hearing that, his action of grabbing Rand's collar stopped. Rasia blurted out in confusion. What was that? Repetition of 70. He recounted slowly. But your body will become visibly weaker, and then you will die a miserable death while blood pours from your body. Even I don't know who is behind this yet. Rand glanced over to remind him. But I'm warning you in advance. Listen carefully to what I'm saying now, because this is your last chance to keep your life. Hearing these words, Rasia kept gritting his teeth as if restraining himself. A while later, Rand turned into a black crow and flew away in the rain. He silently breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness this guy is just as gullible and cowardly as described in the story. When he left the first prince's palace, the guy didn't even send anyone to follow him. He calculated in his heart, for now, I'll just lead him by the nose as I please. Right now, Rossio was holding his head in agony. Rand flew straight toward the castle ahead, thinking, I must admit, this ability is really convenient. Thanks to it, I could go to many more places than I imagined. Then suddenly he remembered something. Wait, if that's the case, I might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone while I'm out. Rand hurriedly changed direction and flew off. Time passed, and the sun had risen, radiating warm sunlight. Anna felt conflicted. Now what should I do about this? She stood in front of the door, muttering in confusion. The prince hasn't eaten or drunk anything for 2 days, and there hasn't been any sound or movement in the room either. In her heart, Anna was terrified. What if something bad happened to the prince? She remembered the threat. Those who harmed a royal would face the highest penalty, the death penalty. So Anna hurriedly knocked on the door and called out loudly, Prince, Your Highness, are you all right? She yelled. I humbly asked to enter. At that moment, Rand opened the door and muttered, What are these people doing, being so noisy? Because she wasn't prepared, Anna fell face first to the ground, and the bowl of food spilled all over Rand's shoes. His expression was cold as he looked down. Seeing that, Anna immediately burst into tears. I deserve to die. I was just worried in case your highness wasn't feeling well. Tears streamed down her face as she explained. So, before Anna could finish, Rand spoke coldly. Rushing in to disturb me is one thing. He frowned and questioned uncomfortably. Now you've dirted the floor and my shoes too? How do you intend to take responsibility for this? Anna screamed in a panic. I truly deserve to die. I don't care about my own pathetic life, but please spare my family. Hearing that, Rand ordered, Forget it. Clean it spotless in 5 minutes and get lost. This left Anna bewildered. Yes, as you command, your highness. She even heard him add, And from now on, unless I call for you myself, all of you are forbidden from coming near my private quarters. Rand sighed wearily. They're always ready to offer their lives. It's annoying. Now that I've set clear rules, I shouldn't be bothered by these trivial matters anymore. Just like that, the sky turned clear and blue, and time passed as quickly as the wind. In the blink of an eye, it had been a month since the first prince coughed up blood at the sacrificial ceremony. During this time, a rumor had silently spread throughout the palace. The first prince, the future emperor, had lost his power. Except for the suffering felt by other princes and princesses, that rumor was like a signal that a once-in-a-thousand-years opportunity had arrived. Rand slowly remembered in the novel that to extinguish these rumors, Rassia had begged the emperor to speed up the organization of the hunting competition. Although there was a slight discrepancy, this was supposed to happen half a year from now. He calmly rode his horse, calculating, but fortunately, everything is generally sticking pretty close to the original plot. The problem was he didn't know if this was just happening in the capital or if it was also affecting the male lead outside. The group was riding their horses inside. He thought to himself, Today is the day of the royal hunting competition. If I'm lucky, I'll meet him at today's event, and then I can hand that thing over to him. After that, I'll keep a low profile and wait for the right moment. Just then, a mocking voice sounded. Hey, you bug over there. He rode his horse past, taunting, That pitch-black horse looks like a perfect match for your gloomy face. Rand didn't care and continued thinking. One thing that worried him slightly was that, since this was a year before the story began, that guy seemed much more impulsive and hot-headed than in the story. He told himself, Forget that guy. Don't take it personally. Today I have more important things to do. Time kept passing without a word. The guy got even angrier and shouted, You little idiot. You dare ignore me? Rand stroked his horse and exclaimed, Trying to bring out a black horse to look down on me? But personally, I prefer black horses over golden ones. It seems the 7th prince at least has the talent to win over animals. He looked forward and spoke, We've finally arrived. Looking at the scene in front of him, Rand couldn't help but exclaim, So this is the entrance to the royal forest. That is the origin tower. This year's opening ceremony is also being held right here. Repetition of 104. He silently evaluated. To be blunt, this looks more like a political power struggle than a talent competition. At this moment, the emperor also arrived. He glanced at Rassia and ordered, First Prince, hurry and prepare for the upcoming opening ceremony. He hurriedly replied, I understand. From behind, Dido stepped up to inquire. Seeing you still healthy like this, brother, I'm very happy. Have you thought about what wish you'll make? Rasia frowned, jumped off his horse, and asked back, What wish are you talking about, Dido? He immediately replied, The wish that the winner of the hunting competition will be granted by His Majesty, of course. After all, isn't today's winner definitely you? Hearing the flattery, Rasia silently scoffed. Of course. This ceremony was originally an opportunity to show off the manus power of the future emperor, a display of royal authority before the nobles. The people below whispered, Oh, it's such an honor to witness the first prince's manus power with my own eyes today. But recently I've heard rumors of an unfortunate incident. Sure, are you crazy? What if someone hears? Rasia stepped forward, gritting his teeth, thinking, I didn't expect that one day I'd have to follow the words of that bug. You better not be bluffing. He remembered Rand's confident face that day. Rasia gritted his teeth and channeled Manus, whispering, If you dare to trick me, I'll chop you into pieces in the most painful way possible. Below, Rand was smiling and assessing. Look at him. You're so stiff. Don't be so nervous, Rasia. He felt a bit excited, as if doing something bad. Just do exactly as I told you. And in a moment, there'll be a good show to watch. In the sky, black clouds gathered. Rasia was concentrating on channeling Manus. The energy around him enveloped his entire body. Powerful currents of Manus were everywhere, swirling like a tornado wanting to swallow everything. Suddenly, a large rock hit someone. The people standing around panicked and cried out, Look out! Don't get pulled into the vortex. They kept shouting at each other, and everyone stepped back. Ran alone stood there with a stern face. Rasia gritted his teeth and said, I'm the first prince, Rasia. Each word sounded with difficulty. He reached his hands toward the sky and shouted, The one destined to become emperor. All the Manus currents around quickly gathered into large dragons. They flew straight up into the high sky. Under that power, the black clouds slowly dissipated, and the sky became clear. Raindrops also began to fall. Aoni spoke tensely. So this is the magic power of the royals. The people around began to excitedly shout, Long live the first prince. Returning to that day, Rand had taken out a stone and ordered Rasia, Take this and channel your Manus into it. He immediately opposed. A stone? Are you playing with me? Rand explained nonchalantly. It can absorb polluted Manus. And if you don't want to be cured, then go ahead and die, because I have no interest in saving someone who doesn't value their own life. Hearing these words, Rasia was so angry he trembled. Returning to the present, Rand happily climbed onto his horse. That bought some time. This was an item that only appeared in the next season of the original plot, but using it a bit early shouldn't matter. Just then, someone ran over trembling. Seventh Prince, I request an audience. His whole body seemed ready to collapse. He reported while panting heavily. As you ordered, I have brought the bag you left behind. Rand just responded coldly. Ah, you finally arrived? He glanced coldly and scolded. You really are good for nothing. You brought the bag here intact, right? Same was terrified, bowed his head, and thought, Damn it, how did I manage to get here on that crazy black horse? That horse was very ferocious. Many people had been injured by it. That's exactly why I deliberately brought it to the Seventh Prince. Just then, whistles sounded everywhere. The Emperor waved his hand to signal. Then from this moment on, the royal hunting competition officially begins. The crowd immediately became bustling and ran off. Should I try to win this and ask the Emperor for a wish? Don't dream. The royal family will definitely help them win this time. Ran on his horse, shook his head slightly, and exclaimed, Everyone is rushing so fast. Anyway, this competition wasn't important to him at all right now. It was better to keep a low profile to avoid drawing attention. That was the only way to easily search for the former Grand Commander of the Royal Knights, Agoni Fidus. Meanwhile, Agony was standing in the shade, inquiring, Talon, what do you think of the opening ceremony for this hunt? Talon smirked and exclaimed, Truly the power of the divine. Agony heard this and expressed his thoughts. When witnessing that ritual, I had a feeling the Emperor wanted to threaten the morale of the nobles. Hearing that, he hurriedly reminded, Ah, Duke. Talon looked around suspiciously and suggested, I beg you, such rebellious words should only be said when you are alone. He calmly reassured, Relax, Talon. There's no one around here who can eavesdrop on us. Agony's gaze darkened, muttering, I've lived to this age for a reason. At least until now. A while later, Ran also set off. The royal forest where the hunt took place was divided into 3 main areas. He held a map of the area in his hand. The first was the small game area near the entrance. Next was the medium game area. And the large game area was deep in the forest. Rand slowly remembered that the novel mentioned he had presented the Emperor with a golden fox during this hunt. The problem was that the detail was only mentioned briefly in a flashback, so he didn't know where to find it. That was why he had to turn into a crow to survey this vast royal forest so many times. Golden foxes were very hard to find, so he had to narrow down the location. Rand spoke with great confidence, based on the detail that he washed his hands in the water right after hunting the animal. I guess the location must be at the southwest lakeshore. He pulled the reins excitedly, telling himself, I have to go one step ahead to wait for the right moment. In his heart, Rand thought that sometimes it felt like it understood everything he said. He looked at his bag and relaxed. Gladson managed to bring it here. I was worried sick for nothing because he was late. Now he just needed to hand this over to Duke Agonifitus. Suddenly, the horse seemed to notice something. It stopped dead in its tracks, catching Rand off guard. He stepped down, confused, and blurted out, What's going on? Rand cautiously asked, Why did you suddenly stop like that? Are you sick or something? The black horse shook its head in denial. So, he continued to ask, Did you spot a wild animal nearby? It shook its head again. Rand's eyes widened in confusion. Don't tell me, he guessed. This bag is too heavy, isn't it? Rand immediately shouted in frustration. Stop being so stubborn. Other people's horses pull carriages, but you're struggling just to carry one bag and a person. He clenched his fist, challenging it. Fine, let's see how long you can hold out. If you keep acting so arrogant, I'll tell the stable master to let you start. As soon as he finished speaking, the horse took off running. Rand just stood there, staring blankly at its retreating figure. A sinking feeling echoed in his heart. I'm doomed. At the same time, in another part of the forest, Talon looked around nervously and sighed. Usually, catching a few wolves or deer at this hour is a piece of cake. But it seems luck isn't on our side today. Agony looked a bit sad, bowing his head as he lamented. Maybe I really am getting old. I've spent my whole life as a sword and shield, but even I can't fight the passage of time. Talon, standing beside him, smiled to reassure him. Please don't say that. You're already a legend, dude. He kept praising him. Haven't you achieved countless glorious victories back when you were the Grand Knight Commander? Agony politely dismissed it. Now I'm just a retired old man. Then he continued to ask, Talon, have you ever seen royalty from up close? He replied, dazed, No, sir. I've only seen them from afar like today. Agony lowered his voice, sounding a bit melancholic. When you face them directly, you'll understand. Only then will you know who truly is a great existence in this empire. He contemplated and said, They are gods in the flesh. My family has protected the empire of those gods for the past 1,000 years. Agony recalled the day he told his son, Look outside to see the majesty of this beautiful and magnificent imperial capital. Agony instructed Talon, I'm old now, so you must be the one to take my place. We must always take pride in being a loyal family to the royal line. The boy obediently replied, Yes, father. Agony gestured outside. Look out the window. That's our family's trading house. We're proud to be the supplier for the royal family. He smiled with pride. And next, over there is... Suddenly, a sound rang out, forcing Agony to step out of the carriage to inquire. Hey, what the hell is happening? The coachman replied in a panic. Oh, my lord. I am truly sorry. Something got stuck in a wheel. He offered a suggestion. Please step back into the carriage. I will clear it up immediately. However, Agony's gaze fell upon the child lying there. Under the wheel, long trails of blood were flowing. The coachman sighed. Looks like some nomad from around here. Seems he was caught trying to steal royal tribute for the temple. He said calmly, In this place, this kind of thing happens every day. Inside the carriage, Talon asked curiously, Father, what's going on? I want to go out and see too. However, Agony shouted to stop him. Don't go out. The boy called out, bewildered, Father. Agony's expression darkened, warning his son not to go out. Agony's eyes went empty as he stammered. It's nothing. Back to reality, Agony looked up at the sky and mused. The kid wasn't even 10 years old yet, was he? He felt a pang of sorrow. Then he's even younger than my son. That child must have been burned in the furnace. So even in such a noble empire, there are still dark corners. Talon, from behind, quickly reminded him, "We don't have time to leisurely enjoy the scenery. Duke, even if we don't win, we must maintain the dignity of the Duke's family." Hearing that, Agony woke up and replied, "My fault. Let's head out. I know a place where the golden fox appears." Meanwhile, Ran was leaning against a tree, panting. "Running with this bag is so tiring. I'll definitely turn you into horse meat when we get back." He gritted his teeth in helplessness. "I can't transform just because I have to carry this bag. It would be bad if I lost track of Duke Agoniphytus. Should I just transform and go back?" Ran leaned against the tree and thought. A few times when he turned into a crow to scout, he accidentally learned that this forest is very dangerous. Even in the small animal zone, you never know when a wild beast might appear. He began to calculate. Damn it, what should I do now? It's a waste to throw this bag away and run, but I didn't bring any weapons either because it's too inconvenient. Finally, Ran made up his mind and threw a stone. Forget it. If there's real danger, I'll just run for it. On the opposite side, Talon was pushing aside the bushes, announcing, "I'm sure I saw it. A black horse is charging from far away." As soon as he finished speaking, the rock hit him square in the face. Ran wondered in confusion. That hair. Could it be? Hearing the loud noise, Agony rushed over to check. Talon, what's that sound? Are you all right?" Ran quickly hid behind a tree when he recognized that blue hair. It was definitely the Duke's confidant, Fidus. Talon Dia. He had passed out by now. He hit his tracks in fear. Crap, I didn't expect to run into him in a place like this. The person out there is the former Grand Knight Commander of the Imperial Army, the war hero Duke Agoniphytus. According to Rant's knowledge, he is the one who will become the mentor of the male lead in the novel, the one who will later topple this entire empire. At this moment, Ran was panicking, hiding behind the tree, glancing at Agony. Agoniphytus, I can't run into him here. He recalled the original trap set for him. The original plan wasn't like this at all. Originally, he would have ambushed the Golden Fox's location first, and when Fidus arrived, he would have framed him for daring to wait and rob the royal prey. Originally, he would have ambushed the Golden Fox's location first, and when Fidus arrived, he would have framed him for daring to wait and rob the royal prey. But now, he gritted his teeth in deep anxiety. What do I do now? Everything is messed up. On the other hand, the Duke was glancing at the stone on the ground. This rock is quite heavy. Someone must have thrown it on purpose. But Agony was full of suspicion, scanning the distance, unable to confirm if their target was only Talon. Is an assassin targeting me? Suddenly, Talon woke up in pain, calling out weakly, "Duke." He immediately turned to Talon. However, Agony didn't let his guard down, reminding him, "Talon, have you come to your senses? If you remember anything, say it immediately." Even Ran started to feel nervous. The Fidus family had protected the royal family for over a millennium. They were the most powerful force in the empire. He was currently just the 7th prince considered trash. What if the rumor that he wanted to assassinate Duke Fidus got out? His face was blank with sweat as he recalled. I saw. He felt increasingly terrified. Things are going way too far. Damn it. What do I do? What should I do? What now? Talon seemed to be preparing to say a certain name, but what came out of his mouth was an apology. "I'm sorry, Duke. Everything happened too suddenly." Ran heard that and cheered inwardly. Damn, that was lucky. Agony suddenly noticed a dark shadow behind a tree. All right, I understand. If you remember anything else. Ran seized the opportunity and bolted for his life. This is the chance, gotta run. Gotta run as far away as possible. The Duke immediately chased after him. You stay here and wait. I will catch the attack. In a flash, Ran ran deep into the forest. But he was starting to show signs of exhaustion. My stamina is totally drained. Running while carrying this heavy bag of rocks is trying to kill me. Ran looked back while running, but surely he was far enough now, right? Shaking off an old man like that should be a piece of cake. Yet Agony was still hot on his heels. Doesn't that crazy old man have a retirement status? He chased after him while shouting. Identify yourself. Are you a reactionary or part of a cult? I don't care who you are. You won't escape Agoniphytus. Ran grew even more panicked as the gap was closing. Crap, He's about to catch up. He thought of a plan while running. Should I just dump the bag and turn into a crow? It would be great if that crazy black horse were here right now. Rand started preparing to speed up. His steps became faster and faster. Suddenly, he accelerated to the max sprint. Agoni behind him was surprised. I thought I was catching up. Why did he suddenly speed up? His shape also seems to have changed. He swung his sword forward, annoyed. Is my vision failing me? This is frustrating. A section of the forest was slashed away, but Agoni couldn't see a trace of him. Did I lose him? On this side, Rand felt strange as he ran. His body felt light all of a sudden. Did I end up turning into a crow again? But it feels like I'm still diligently running. Suddenly, the silhouette of a black horse appeared. Was that Hoofbeats? Did that damn horse come back? Its eyes were reflecting the forest ahead. Or wait, in his moment of danger, he had turned into a horse. This is insane. Elsewhere, Dido looked up and couldn't help but marvel. Whoa, this. Oh my brother, did you really catch it? Rasia looked smug at the monster's carcass in front of him. What? Is it hard to believe? He pretended to congratulate him. The victory in this hunt belongs to you. Brother, have you thought about what wish you'll ask the Emperor for? He just smiled coldly. A wish, huh? Suddenly, Rasia's face revealed a sinister look. I have my own plans. By now, Rand was resting against a large tree, sighing. He hugged his head in worry. I'm screwed. Only now did Rand realize he had dropped a bag full of stones. While running away, he had lost the bag. He couldn't accept it and rolled around complaining. Damn, losing the most important thing is the worst. Deviating from the plan is one thing, but this... His face was now full of regret, but Rand sighed, quickly pulling himself together. Standing here worrying won't solve anything. Should go back and check the old path. Talon was sitting and resting, feeling a bit surprised. Oh, Duke, you returned? Agoni was concerned about his injury. Has your head stopped hurting? Talon smiled to reassure him. I'm fine, although I'm still a bit dizzy. He mentioned the recent chase. More importantly, what was the result? He sighed, admitting, it's shameful I lost him. Don't know if he's too fast, or if I'm really just getting old. Suddenly, Agoni noticed a full bag. What's that? Talon answered honestly. This bag? I found on the way back. It was abandoned in the grass. He quickly leaned down to check. Looks quite luxurious. But why is it full of stones? Rand was currently hiding behind a tree, eavesdropping. How would I know? Probably some bored jerk playing a prank. Suddenly, he appeared and shouted, startling them. Ah, that bag. The two looked at Rand in confusion and blurted out. The seventh prince. They immediately knelt down to salute. I greet the seventh prince. I greet the seventh prince. Agoni was the first to speak. Is this bag yours, prince? He replied straightforwardly. Yeah, I was wondering where it went. Rand suddenly adopted a superior attitude to question them. Why is my stuff with you guys? Did you steal it? He was shocked and immediately denied it. Steal? How could that be? I just happened to find it in the grass. He still pretended to be suspicious. Who wouldn't make up an excuse in that situation? Because nobody wants their hands chopped off, right? Agoni quickly swore. I pledge my worthless life and the honor of my family on it. Rand pretended to care about Talon. Why is your confidant bleeding? He turned to look at him and explained. That thing from earlier? A sudden accident occurred. Now Talon dared to look up. In a flash, the image of him throwing the rock at him appeared. Talon was about to ask for clarification. Seventh prince? Could it be? But Rand quickly reached out and grabbed his head. His face was cold and threatening. A subordinate daring to rudely interrupt a royal conversation? Truly uneducated. Rand continued to threaten him despite Talon trembling in fear. If his brain isn't clear, may I borrow your sword? Let me discipline him myself. The boy turned pale and stammered. Prince, Agoni stood nearby and respectfully asked for mercy. My confidant has made a grave mistake. If you show mercy, I will personally punish him severely. Rand pretended to agree. Oh, Duke Fidus, your loyalty is truly admirable. He suddenly mentioned an old incident. A shining example, indeed. A royal hunting dog that doesn't even blink when his guard is about to die. Rand suddenly mentioned his son. Your son will surely become such a loyal dog in the future. He lifted the bag and started executing his plan. Since we met like this, it's fate. Today, I'll trust you to keep this bag. Rand exuded a sinister vibe as he handed the bag to Agoni. It is an extremely important item. Even if you die, don't let it leave your person. He added a sarcastic remark. Do you understand? He was clearly dissatisfied but had to accept. I respectfully obey the prince's noble command. Done with his plan, Rand sighed with relief and walked away. I'll head back now. Have a fun hunt. Phew, forget that. My body feels much lighter. Even so, he looked back anxiously. Even I think that acting performance was trashy as hell. Even though he felt a bit guilty toward Talon, at least he had managed to plant these seeds. Talon now apologized. I'm sorry, Duke. Because of me. Agoni replied coldly. You should count yourself lucky that your limbs are still intact. Let's go back and rest. That's enough for today. He still wanted to tell him about being attacked. Duke, I just remembered something about the person who threw the rock at me. Talon revealed it was Rand, making his face darken. It was the 7th prince. He was still trying to add more. At first I didn't recognize him, but when I saw your face... Agoni, now full of resentment, interrupted. Stop. You don't need to say anything more. He was currently recalling the plot. In the novel, Fidus would face that incident in the following year's hunt, but that was because the death of his son that year had changed his temperament. So he was planning to change the plot. To make that incident happen in this very hunt, he needed to create a strong enough stimulus. So he was planning to change the plot. To make that incident happen in this very hunt, he needed to create a strong enough stimulus. He showed clear disdain. Nomads living like parasites in the imperial capital. I will wipe them all out. Rand's eyes clearly revealed his intention. Duke Fidus, your future is already set. On the other hand, he turned toward the sun. There was the silhouette of the Duke. You will rebel against the royal family later, because that is your destiny. Just then, someone landed in the forest at sunset. That person kept walking stealthily through the bushes. It was Rand, checking his surroundings. I scouted the air a dozen times before landing. There are no witnesses, right? He suddenly felt some regret for his earlier actions. Didn't expect to do such evil things to Agoni Fidus and Talon. Suddenly felt like a cheap villain. Wait, I am a villain, aren't I? While Rand was deep in thought, a figure suddenly appeared. Next, as soon as the hunt ended, that person smiled with surprise. Oh my, is that you, Rand? Rare to see you walking alone in the forest like this. This was the Grand Princess Mentil Abrin. Rand glanced at her warily. Grand Princess, how did I manage to run into her in this middle-of-nowhere place? He quickly saluted. I greet the Grand Princess. She pretended to be friendly, dropped the stiff formalities. After all, we're royal siblings. Mentil acted concerned. And you? Where did your horse go that you're walking back alone? Well, the thing is, Rand made an excuse. I just wanted to take a walk and breathe some fresh air, so I left my horse at the camp. Suddenly, Mentil's tone turned cold. She glared at him, questioning, I don't understand. Why do you have to lie to your own sister? He played dumb. What do you mean? Mentil recounted immediately. When walking through the western forest at noon, I saw a black horse without an owner. Seeing the strange coat color, I asked the servants. They said it was yours. Her attitude, when mentioning it, was indifferent and cold-blooded. I personally ordered that black horse to be killed. A beast that dares to disobey royal orders only deserves death. Rand heard that and knelt to apologize. I'm sorry, sister. I was just embarrassed for losing my horse, so I misspoke. Mentil put on a forgiving look. Come on, lift your head up. Doing that, people might think I'm bullying. She turned and left. It's good that you returned safely. If you need another horse later, just come find me anytime. He was still watching Mentil with a suspicious gaze. This Grand Princess Mentil Abrin is truly a difficult person because no one can ever guess what she's planned. In Rand's head, her scary face appeared. But why did she leave so easily? Could it be that his ability didn't work on her? At the same time, in a tent, a voice came, No, so. A physician was examining the person opposite. You were chasing a beast, then tripped over a rock and fell, hitting your head on another one. He looked at Talon and could only sigh helplessly. I've seen all kinds of injuries at royal hunts, but this is the first time I've seen someone pathetic enough to get a traumatic brain injury just from some rocks. Agoni asked about his condition. How long will he need to recover? The physician gave a diagnosis. Externally, it looks light, but the internal injury is quite serious. Must stay on the bed for at least a week. He heard that and immediately protested. A week? You mean I have to stay in bed for this whole hunt? As a guard, I must be by the Duke's side. He placed a hand on Talon's shoulder to reassure him. I acknowledge your loyalty. Agoni also advised him. But life comes first, so just sleep until the closing ceremony. And the guards will handle the rest of the hunt. Talon still didn't want to, but do. He suddenly smiled brightly and obeyed. If that is truly your wish, I promise to recover with all my might. Agoni could only sigh. Going on a hunt and getting a vacation like this is truly unique in Imperial history. Talon couldn't hide his joy. You never gave me a day off, right? My life's dream is just to eat and play. Too bad I have no money. He joked. Then I must win this to realize your dream. At that point, I'll ask for the gold mine mining rights for you. Time quickly passed in a late night. While he was sleeping, someone approached Talon. That person gently placed a letter beside him. Rant's sinister face and the words from the morning suddenly appeared in Agoni's mind. A shining example. A royal hunting dog that doesn't even blink when his guard is in mortal danger. At this moment, Agoni was hugging his head, thinking about what he said this morning. Your son will surely become such a loyal dog in the future. He decided to go out for a while. Tossing and turning. Can't sleep. Maybe go out for some fresh air. Suddenly, Agoni spotted something. Next to the main tent was the bag full of stones that Ran had given him. Agoni decided to take it with him. He walked and thought. Today I'll take my son to the temple. There's something I really want to show him. Agoni began to reminisce. Long ago, when the world was in chaos, a savior descended from the heavens. The person talking to him was Talon. I read it in a book. Father, are you talking about the ancient emperor? Agoni stood before the giant statue and continued the story. He is the embodiment of the divine, holding mystical power, and the one who quelled those who constantly spread war. He kept telling stories about the founder of the current empire, and so, over 1,000 years ago, he established a unified empire named Abrin. He is the founding ancestor of the royal family we serve. Agoni was still thinking about his son. Talon, my son, my priceless treasure. He looked toward the dawn and recalled his instruction to his son. Follow in my footsteps and become the proud sword of the royal family. Only now did Agoni pay attention to the bag of rocks behind him. So heavy. Why do I have to carry these rocks around like this? He was still lost in deep thought. Was it because of loyalty? Or suddenly heard a noise from afar. This horn, could it be? At the same time, the people were gathering around something. Oh my God, all this in just one night? Heard the beasts howling all night long without stop. They were discussing the carcass of a giant monster. Looks like the first prince wiped them out. So the hunt is over already. The people were constantly amazed by Rossia's achievements. According to the original plan, the royal hunt would take place over 4 days. But the first prince of the Abrin Empire had achieved an unprecedented hunting record in just one single night. Right after that came the announcement of his victory. So I declare him the winner of this hunt. The emperor also came to congratulate Rossia. Congratulations on your victory. He bowed his head to thank him. Thank you, your majesty. He immediately asked for the reward Rossia wanted. According to the rules, first prince, tell me the wish you want granted. The crowd was curious. Wonder what he'll ask for? Didn't the fourth prince ask for the right to purge nomads on the border last year? He began to express his wish. Recently, refugees have been gathering like parasites around the ancient emperor's temple, harming the sanctity and security of the holy site. Rossia smiled while speaking. To restore the original beauty of the temple. Agoni felt more uneasy as he listened. He was extremely shocked by his wish. I ask your majesty for the authority to purge them. In Agoni's head, a weak voice began to echo. Father, Father. In those eyes, his image was clear. Agoni suddenly drew his sword from its scabbard. A loyal hunting dog of the royal family. But that child, he drew his sword, causing the crowd to fearfully step back. Agoni's face revealed seriousness. I'm sorry, Talon, my son. At the same time, a vague voice came. Hey. Rant's face suddenly appeared in front of the boy. Talon fell off the bed in a panic. Who's there? I greet the seventh prince. He showed a bit of concern. Move gently. Blood is rushing to your brain, so you'll be dizzy. Rand kindly instructed further. Later, remember to find a physician for some anti-inflammatory medicine. Or no, olive leaves to drink. He hurriedly listened. Yes, sir. But why are you here? He just sighed and replied, well, never mind the reason. Don't you even know what situation the Duke is in right now? By now, the closing ceremony must have started. Talon still didn't understand what was happening. Closing ceremony? What are you saying? Rand cheered him on inwardly. That's it. Run over there right now. Talon quickly pushed his way forward. Excuse me. Sorry, let me through. But the scene before him left him stunned. I'm sorry. That was the scene of him kneeling beforehand. The Duke. He was shaking with anger now. Duke Fidus. What the hell is going on here? He remained there, stating, Our Fidus family has served the ancient emperor since the dawn of time and has protected the royal family at the closest range for over 1,000 years. Agoni's face was full of seriousness as he declared, Considering that our Fidus family is better suited for the menial task of handling the refugees around the temple. He spoke his wish plainly before the emperor. Therefore I, Agoni Fidus, humbly beg your majesty to grant me this privilege. Yet he immediately agreed. In respect of the loyalty you have dedicated your whole life to, I shall grant your request. However, the emperor's voice suddenly turned cold. However, it is truly ridiculous when your so-called great loyalty is used to stand in the way of the royal family's will. Then, Rasia immediately acted against Agoni. Do you think the first prince will show mercy? He laughed with contempt. You've lost your mind, Duke. Have you forgotten that your current actions are enough to get you beheaded immediately? He was ready to accept the death sentence. I am guilty of ruining His Majesty's sacred ceremony. I will use this life to pay for my sins. Outside, Talon was screaming at the top of his lungs. Duke! Ran was also outside watching the show. Finally, the play has begun. If only the guy were also watching this scene from afar, that would be great. At the same time, in another place, someone was drawing water from the river, but something unexpected happened. He looked down, confused. What is this? The water is actually being pulled into the air. Can you see it clearly? Agoni Fidus's execution ritual. Can you feel the royal manna that you are about to confront? The person drawing water just looked up coldly. The true protagonist of the Dark Header novel was here. The boy in the hood lifted his head. The narrative revealed his true identity. He was the real protagonist of the novel Dark Header. His name was Rael. The true hero of the story had finally appeared. Agoni Fidus was the head of the Fidus house, a noble lineage that had protected the royal family for 1,000 years. For 30 years, he had achieved countless feats on the battlefield as the former commander of the Royal Knights. Now, after being accused of committing the crime of high irreverence against the royal family, he knelt before the Crown Prince. Blue mana swirled violently around him as Crown Prince Rasia Abian raised his hand and declared, in his own name, that the sinner Agoni Fidus was sentenced to immediate execution. A massive column of water erupted outward. A massive column of water erupted outward. The nobles and soldiers present were all frozen in horror as the blue water surrounded Agoni and crushed him under terrifying pressure. Talon stared in horror, unable to breathe as the magical storm raged before his eyes. Duke Fidus wondered why Talon was here. He remembered saying that the boy was feeling dizzy, so he thought it was just an excuse, but now seeing him, he realized Talon looked much healthier than expected. Inside the violent water, Agoni struggled against the overwhelming power. He thought he had never imagined a parting would take place in such a pathetic situation. He quietly told Talon that he knew he had no right to ask for anything, but still begged him to take care of Talon. Suddenly, he paused. He quietly told Talon that he knew he had no right to ask for anything, but still begged him to take care of Talon. Suddenly, he paused. He tried to guess the meaning, then said it wasn't over yet. He still had work to do. The Crown Prince raised a hand, gathering the remaining blue mana. A column of water and light tore through the sky. The force shot straight up like a spear, piercing the clouds, spreading pressure waves across the area. The Crown Prince looked down coldly as the magic finished its fury. Talon sat in his arms, looking up with wide, terrified eyes. In the distance, a silver-haired boy sat at a desk in a quiet room. Through the window, that blue streak was also cutting across the sky. Elsewhere, under the open sky, Rael lifted his head from under his hood and looked at the streak of light passing overhead. Without hesitation, he began to chase it. He ran across the grass, then threw himself forward as the water magic flew away at incredible speed. But it was too murky inside, so he couldn't see clearly. Rael thought he couldn't see anything at all. Then he wondered if there was anyone inside. He continued to chase, landing near a cliff as the water column had shot far into the distance. Sweat streamed down his face as he worried if he had lost the trail. At this moment, Talon was still standing frozen in extreme shock. Standing in the middle of the devastated ground, Talon looked at the ruins of the execution and thought that a hero like Duke Fidus had ended up this way. People wondered what would happen to the Duke's family now. Some noticed him and realized the Duke's attendant was nearby. The announcement was made that everything was over. An official replied that he understood. Then he declared that the closing ceremony of the hunting competition would be held at noon, and all participants must stay until then. The Crown Prince calmly adjusted his gloves and said they had just crushed a small worm. He said that showing mercy only made trashy people forget their place and crawl out. The nobles bowed their heads in silence as he walked past. Someone said the Fidus house was finished too. Another muttered that it was hard to believe such a fool had once been the head of the house. Talon bowed his head in the crowd. Suddenly, a foot stepped in front of him, blocking him. A few people gathered around, and someone called him a traitor. From nearby, the seventh prince observed and thought that Talon's heart must be breaking. After all, he had been the attendant by Duke Fidus's side, and the two were very close. Even so, he believed Talon wouldn't collapse. Talon quietly left the crowd and entered a tent. Inside, the place was devastated. Furniture was broken, wooden shards scattered all over the floor. He knelt down and noticed a sealed letter lying under a fallen cloth. He picked it up and wondered if it was a letter. Looking at the seal, he realized it was the Fidus family crest. Opening it, he read the message left behind. The letter said that if Talon was reading this, Agoni was likely no longer in this world. It asked that at that time, he should offer a small prayer so Agoni could find his way to Tyrannum. Agoni's final letter continued, saying that he entrusted his son to Talon's care and hoped he would fulfill the last request of an old man. Agoni wrote that he had a premonition his honor was about to be dragged through the mud, and if that day came, Talon must remember one thing. It was not his fault. Talon's eyes trembled as he read the next statement. Agoni Fidus, head of the Fidus house, officially declared, if anything happened to him, his attendant, Talon Kissa, would become the interim head of the Fidus house. The letter slipped from Talon's hand. He fell backward in astonishment, weighed down by the responsibility left behind. A moment later, he stood with his arms crossed in a quiet room and said the Crown Prince had indeed shown an impressive display of mana. He added that if the Crown Prince thought he had squeezed everything out, he was dead wrong, because his condition had actually been worse since the hunting competition. The Crown Prince sat there with his injuries, coughing up blood, angrily shouting that he had suffered enough. He mentioned that Ran Aberin had said the stone absorbed contaminated mana. He asked if the seventh prince was certain the treatment had no problems. When the Crown Prince glared and said that if he valued his life, he should answer straight, Ran explained that the Crown Prince needed to release mana much more slowly, because forcing it only made things worse. The Crown Prince erupted in fury and demanded to know what Ran had just said. In his heart, he cursed Ran and thought that when his body fully recovered, he would tear him apart with his own hands. Ran observed his expression and guessed that must be what he was thinking. Unflinching, he said the illness could not be cured at once, and the Crown Prince was only still breathing thanks to the stone. As he left, Rasia thought that from what he heard, Talon was still in a coma. The guilt was weighing on him more than expected, and Ran worriedly wondered if Talon would actually die. At that moment, Talon suddenly opened his eyes in bed and asked where he was. The servant panicked and called him the interim head of the house, warning that he shouldn't leave the bed and should at least lean on someone. Talon weakly sat up and said he was fine, telling them to step aside and give him some space. The servant explained that Talon had been unconscious for over 2 weeks and warned he could fall at any time. Talon adjusted his glasses and said he needed to see the young master first. He asked about the current situation of the family. The servant bowed his head and admitted the situation was not good. He explained that all of the Fidus house's business partners had severed ties. Most of the staff had left, and finances were in a critical state. He added that they couldn't even ask the royal family for help and had no doubt everything stemmed from the recent incident. As the servant began to talk about the young master, a small boy appeared in the hallway and surprisingly called Talon's name. Talon immediately rushed over and called out to the young master. The boy asked how Talon was feeling. Talon knelt before him and said he was fine, apologizing for making him worry so much. The young master said it seemed like a lot of bad things had happened while he was away, and even his father's funeral hadn't been arranged. Talon hesitated and said that regarding that, he had something to explain. Outside the window, the servants were whispering. One said rumors were spreading that Duke Fidus had done crazy things because the young master was originally a wanderer. Another said it was understandable, because everyone found it strange that the Duke had such a late-coming heir. Someone even suggested leaving before being labeled a traitor. His face hardened, and he called Pale. Pale trembled as he replied, and addressed him as interim head of the house. Talon ordered them to bring the tongues of the fools whispering outside the window, declaring they were guilty of spreading sinister rumors about the young master. Pale stammered in fear, trying to object, but Talon coldly asked if he needed to say a second time. Pale immediately bowed his head and said he would carry out the order. Then Talon returned to the young master and declared they would not hold a funeral. The young master surprisingly called Talon's name. Talon explained that Agoni was no longer fit to be considered family and hoped the young master would understand. The boy was shocked and asked why Talon would say that. Therefore, until the young master later became the official head of the house, it was his responsibility to protect the family. He declared that from now on, for the honor and survival of the Fidus house, he would use every means possible to achieve his goal.